Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's the end of the year, which means it's time to look back at all the movies that I watched this year and pick the top 10. Now, these aren't necessarily movies that released in 2025, but these are movies that I watched in 2025. Every year I do this for myself. I started posting about it on my blog, and this year I'm making a video. Before I mention my top 10, I do want to mention a couple of honorary mentions that I feel were really good movies, almost made it into my top 10, but then they fell short for one or the other reason. So they are Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person, Flow, Midsommar, and Fresh. Three of these are horror films, which is interesting because I don't really like horror. Okay, actually, two of them are horror films. One is a horror comedy. I'm not going to go into too much detail for these ones because, well, they were fun, they were great, and I've reviewed them in detail on my blog. Links will be in the description below. If you think any of these should have made it into my top 10 in place of any of the films that I do mention, let me know in the comments below. Now, finally getting to it, at number 10, we have How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. Now, this is a Thai film about a slacker who is jobless and he needs money. So he figures that if he butters up his grandmother, who is suffering from a terminal illness, she might just leave him a massive inheritance. That's quite an absurd plot, but the film itself is really heartwarming. I watched this in January and it feels like I watched this ages ago, but that warm feeling and that smile on my face I had at the end of the movie with that final scene, I still remember how it feels. It has some pretty bitter moments of reality because, come on, you have one character who's dealing with a terminal illness, and how that illness not just affects her but the entire family. And what starts off as the cynical, oh, I can just leech money off this woman, into developing a genuine relationship with a family member from a different generation. And as much as you are inheriting the money, you're also inheriting these memories and these values from the previous generation because they lived in a different world. This movie explores a lot of these complex concepts, but in a very simplified, digestible manner that makes it a very enjoyable watch. I think I can say this without a doubt that most people would love this movie. It's very sweet, it's very sensitive, and it's very heartwarming. The humor didn't always work for me in this one, but that's also, I think, a cultural thing because this is a Thai film after all. However, it left enough of an impact on me for me to include it in my top 10. At number 9, we have After Sun. Another, well, it's not really a family drama, but it is a drama involving family, particularly a father daughter relationship. This entire film explores this one vacation that this father daughter duo went on before something went terribly wrong. It's told from the perspective of the girl and the memories that she has of this, and it's a very mature film. It's one of those films that really understands what children go through, how children behave, why they behave the way they do, how they think. And I think it's semi autobiographical, if I remember correctly. It's quite a moving film. I think this was released in 2022, and I remember it making a lot of waves. I wanted to check it out, but I was busy with other things. And now that I finally watched it, I wish I'd seen it earlier because it's one of those very raw, poignant explorations of a father-daughter relationship that I've seen, and a realistic one that doesn't romanticize, but neither is it so cynical that it just leaves you depressed. It's one of those. It finds that fine balance between the good and the bad because that's what life is, right? The ending particularly I really love because it's kind of open ended, but you can guess what happened. You can gauge where the story is going because this was the last vacation they had together. So why would this girl be reminiscing of this particular vacation? That's kind of a bummer, but that's going to be at least half of these movies. At number 8, we have a film that I thought was Oscar bait, but now that I've watched it, I feel wow, that there was something really interesting in here. It's called The Zone of Interest. I mentioned this in my review that The Zone of Interest to me was a companion film to an earlier film called Son of Saul. And this is purely to do with the treatment because where Son of Saul is completely shot with close-ups and mids. Zone of Interest divorces you from all the characters, presenting these wide tableaus of this one Nazi officer and his family who live right next to the concentration camp. To see these characters live out a very normal life, arguably normal life, while such inhuman atrocities are being committed literally a wall away, that was unsettling, because you have this regular family drama going on, and then there are these sudden violent reminders of what is actually happening beyond those walls. And it reminded me of a particular genocide that's currently happening, because every time you're on Instagram, you're going through reels, there's a meme, and then suddenly there's this one very depressing video of current affairs. I think this was a very relevant watch, and I get why some people really love this movie. At number 7, we have Red Rooms, a psychological horror thriller that follows this woman who is obsessed with a murder trial. She's a model, but she's also someone who lurks the dark web and is quite tech savvy. And she has taken this obsession to a whole new level, where she wants to find a piece of missing evidence from that trial, and things get quite absurd in this one. What I loved about this movie is that it showed obsession in the internet age, because let's be honest, we all love true crime documentaries. We have had our share of obsessive news consumption because there is one popular sensational case that's being milked for attention by the media. I think Red Rooms does a brilliant job of exploring all of these things while telling you a story that's taking you out of your comfort zone, exploring darker facets of the internet. Many people loved this movie when it came out in 23, I think, and I get why. Like, if I had watched this back then, I'm pretty sure this would have still made my top 10 list. Definitely one of those discomforting but also thought provoking watches. Before I mention my number 6, I have to say this, that movies ranked 1 to 6 are pretty much interchangeable. You can consider this as a six-way tie between the top 6, because I loved every single one of them enough to make them my number 1. Of course, I had to pick a ranking, and I chose this one purely out of my personal biases and my personal liking. Take this with a pinch of salt, and if you want to argue in the comments. It really helps, genuinely. At number 6, we have Santosh. I realize this is the only Indian film that makes it to my top 10 list this year, but honestly, this is one of the best Indian films I've watched in a very long time. It's not just that it's a very dark and brutal exploration of some of the worst things about Indian society. It explores it with that bleak rawness that you need to explore such difficult concepts and such difficult subjects. Santosh follows a woman who is widowed, and then, because of some government policy, takes up the job of a police officer after her police officer husband is killed. She gets tasked with finding a murderer, and then the case just devolves into this cesspool of caste based discrimination and caste based violence that mainstream media doesn't really want to talk about. This movie was banned in India because why talk about problems? I am not going to talk a lot about this movie, because the more I talk about it, I can sense myself getting angrier and sadder about the state of affairs in my country. All I'll say is that if there is one movie out of these 10 that I want you to watch, especially if you're Indian, it's Santosh. At number 5, we have another bummer, which is only a bummer if you think about it, because it's a black comedy by one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, Park Chan-Wook. And you know which movie I'm talking about. It's No Other Choice. No Other Choice is actually a remake of Costa Gavras's The Axe, which in turn is an adaptation of a novel by the same name, written in 1997, about a guy who gets fired and then he can't find a job. So, to improve his chances of converting a job interview, he goes around killing his competition. This book was written in 1997. It should not be relevant at this point, but it is. Of course, Park Chan-wook's cinematic exploration of this same concept is quite unique in its own way. It's genuinely laugh out loud funny until suddenly these moments of reality slap you across the face with the gravity of the situation. People die in this movie, and the more you think about it, it's bleak and depressing, but at the same time, it was an amazing watch. It leaves you with an impact that few movies will, because you know what, it speaks to something that we all are going through. I've had my share of fruitless job hunts where I've submitted hundreds of applications only for maybe a handful to get converted. The competition is cutthroat today, and these capitalist assholes out there don't give a shit about you. And it's become all the more true with the advent of AI. AI. And what I found interesting was that Neon actually organized a special screening to some top billionaire CEOs, and nobody turned up because why would they? They don't give a shit about us. But commentary aside, even if you want to switch off the political side of you and watch this movie just for pure entertainment, it still delivers. It's Park Chan-Wook. He's a great storyteller. He's two of his movies have made it into my top 6, which I also said were tied for first place. So that should tell you something. At number 4 we have Sinners. When it released, was being hailed as the return to cinema, and honestly, it is. What I expected Oppenheimer and Barbie to be, Sinners delivered with a lot more power, a lot more depth, and a lot more nuance. This is what cinema is meant to be like. We are so used to digesting mediocre crap from big franchises because marketing makes you feel FOMO. You forget that cinema can be this powerful. It's a very simple, straightforward story, but just the way that Ryan Coogler has visualized this entire tale, adding elements of fantasy and music, that musical sequence in between where we transcend time, is by far one of the best cinematic sequences in recent cinema history. And I mean that. It's beautiful, it's moving. I'm still getting goosebumps just thinking about it. If Sinners doesn't get the praise and awards it deserves, that just tells you that award functions are rigged, because Sinners deserves it. And not just because it's made by a person of color, it's because it's a damn good piece of cinema. At number 3 we have Park Chan-wook again, this time with his 2016 erotic historical psychological thriller called The Handmaiden. Remember how I said that Park Chan-wook is a legendary filmmaker? Yeah, well, apart from the two top movies that I mentioned in this one, he also made Old Boy, in case you didn't know. Every time I watch a Park Chan-wook movie, I am blown by how he's able to use cinema to tell such powerful stories and twist narratives in interesting ways, and that's what The Handmaiden did. Now this is an adaptation, and I haven't read the book, so I can't claim whether this is better or worse than the book. But what I saw, I really loved. The film is divided into three parts, and every part ends with a twist that completely flips the narrative over. The characters were interesting and human with their own flaws, with their own tenderness and their own cruelty. You dissect every different aspect of this movie, be it the color palettes used, be it the art direction, be it the framing and cinematography, and this movie holds. Okay, at this point I should mention I am a little biased because I love Park Chan-wook. So I knew I would enjoy this movie, but I didn't know I'd enjoy it this much. And I can't really say much about the male gaze because I am male. So even if it's there, I might not be able to catch it. However, I did read that this was one of the first portrayals of LGBTQ relationships in a South Korean movie, and the way it was explored to me felt sensitive and empathetic enough to like it. And well, you tell me what you think about this film, because to me it's definitely one of the top 10 watches. At number 2 we have a film that is being hailed as one of the best films of the year, and that's One Battle After Another by Paul Thomas Anderson. There is a reason this movie is being hailed as the best movie of the year, because it is. Narrative, characters, visuals, music, name it, and it has done an excellent job. It's 2 hours 40 something minutes long, and again, not a dull moment. The film begins with a revolutionary group attacking a detention center and freeing illegally detained immigrants, and just the snowball that ends in a dumpster fire. This movie reminded me a lot of No Country for Old Men because of the way it explored America, and This is a prime example of a film that delivers on amazing entertainment and good political commentary. I remember seeing someone on Letterboxd reviewing this as, how do you show white supremacists and Nazis as absolute I loved everything about this movie, every single aspect. That's all I'm going to say. Watch the film because it really is one of the best of the year. This would have been number one. This six-way tie. I need to keep reminding you, six-way tie. At number one, we have a film by my favorite contemporary filmmaker, Jafar Panahi. He won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year for this film, and that's it was just an accident. Iranian films have a special place in my heart as a filmmaker, and of all those Iranian filmmakers, I particularly love Jafar Panahi's work. I discovered him because of Taxi Tehran, fell in love with his work because of This Is Not a Film. And side note, like if you have not watched This Is Not a Film, go read about the movie, watch the movie, and then you'll know why I love this guy so much. It Was Just an Accident is a film that begins with an unassuming family and ends in 104 minutes of absolute tension, emotionally charged story that will leave you changed. Panahi has been openly critical about the Iranian regime all throughout his career, and this film is no different. I don't really want to tell you what the plot of the film is because discovering the plot along the narrative is actually one of the best experiences of watching this movie. I haven't watched all 22 nominees for the Palme d'Or, so I can't say that this is the best of the lot. But having watched this movie, I have no complaints. Panahi definitely deserves a Palme d'Or for all the work he's done for cinema. That ending, that open ending, still haunts me. It Was Just an Accident was by far one of the most powerful cinematic experiences of the year. And I know I said six-way tie, but if I have to pick one, I pick this one. That's it. I'm gonna take a break from all this for a couple of weeks now because I need it. What do you think of my top 10 list? Let me know in the comments below. And also let me know what you watched this year and which you think were the best movies. Subscribe to the channel, follow me for more, and until next year.